seems legit.
Guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am making this fabulous bag by Oro Rosa. It is called the Luna. It is awesome. So it's got a zipper pocket on the top, and then it's got this beautiful kind of accent thing going on the front. And I, just for funsies and wanted to see if it would work, turned my back accent into a slip pocket, which I thought was really cool. It's also got a zipper pocket on the inside, and it does have a slip pocket as well. It is a very cute little like half circle bag. It doesn't take a lot of hardware, and I really love how the straps come together. So if you'd like to see how I make this, please stay tuned. Alrighty, so I have decided that we are at the green machine today because I just felt like it. I have cut out all of my pieces, and I have already ironed all of the interfacing on because, you know, it's easy to do off camera. So this is my base stabilizer, because I assume that's similar to Decaville Heavy. I haven't put any stabilizer on my vinyl because I don't want it too stiff. And then my lining fabric is a cotton quilting fabric, so I've put the medium woven on the back. Now we're going to follow it according to the instructions, so I do have them here. And I've cut them all out, and I'm just scrolling to the first part of the instructions. So we're going to start with our straps. I have a lot of straps here. So this is I'm doing the shoulder strap version, which is just the width of the vinyl. If you want it as a crossbody version, you need to cut 2 of these and then join them. Well, not quite full 2, but an extra piece. So I'm getting my double-sided tape. This one is from Spotlight. So we are going to put it in the center. Now I'm just going to eyeball the center, but if you are new to bag making, you might want to take a chalk pen and draw the center. And you can see I pat this down. I try not to run my finger along it, as I find it sometimes stretches the vinyl, depending on what brand of vinyl you're using. Now, we're going to go back to the end, and I'm just going to peel off a section. So I'm not going to take the whole lot off, because I find I make it stick to my table and it makes my life harder. So I'm just going to fold both sides in to the center like this. And I'm just going to press it down. Now, depending on what type of vinyl you've got, your vinyl may not want to do this. So if you've got really stubborn vinyl, you may want to put your double-sided tape on the outside so you get a full 1/2 inch holding both sides. Now, obviously, you use twice as much tape, but if it's going to keep coming undone, it will still be quicker and easier for you. The other option is that you can use Wonder Clips. I do try to avoid them on straps where possible. I do still have to sometimes use them because not all vinyl is my friend. This vinyl I'm using is like a faux suede I got from Spotlight. I do like it, but I probably won't buy any more. I'm trying to use up my stash because I have a very large stash. I'm actually trying to avoid buying things until I use up my stash. It's not going great, if I'm totally honest. Sometimes I see a fabric on sale and I just have to have it. Alright, and then I'm just going to jump to the end to make sure that they line up. And then we go back like so. So now that's done, we're going to fold it in half again and we're going to stitch it. So I'm going to put my stitch length up to 4. I feel like a nice long stitch length today. And I'm going to start in about 1/4 inch, and I'm going to start with reversing to the end like that. And then we're going to go forward. Now I'm just going to fold this over as I go, and I am top stitching 1/8 inch from the edge. Now, you can do this however you want. It's bit of those dealer's choice. And you'll notice I'm just doing it in small bursts. That's what happens when you don't use Wonder Clips. If you've never worked with vinyl before, please don't put pins in it. The holes won't go away like it does in fabric. Alright. Now, I think that this vinyl is going to ripple if I was to just turn around at the end and go the other way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the end and I'm going to backstitch and tie it off like that. Trim it. I pull out a big enough tail so that I don't have issues later. And then I'm going to come back up to this end and I'm going to stitch and backstitch. And this way, this will help prevent any twisting that would happen, because I'm pretty sure this would twist if I had have gone the opposite way. I can just tell by feeling it. It's a practice thing. But basically, if your vinyl feels stretchy when you're doing your first side, don't risk it and just jump back up to the top of the other side. Now this side will generally go through a lot easier, but you do have to remember you are sewing through the double-sided tape here, so you don't want to go at full speed. Trust me, I have snapped many a needle doing that. Alright, then we're going to trim off the ends and the tails, and that one got caught up, and that one got caught up. Oh, they've all got caught up. So this is what happens when you don't hold your tails when you start sewing. Sometimes they just get a bit dodgy looking. And last one. Right. So see how now there's no twisting happening. It's just nice and flat. So that's that one done. What's next? Oh, we're going to do it to all of them. Okay. So I've got a lot of straps here. So we're just going to repeat that same process. Grab my double-sided tape, add it on. I'm just using my snips to cut it. It will potentially make your snips go blunt quicker, but on the other hand, it's convenient and snips are like $3 or $4, so I just do it anyway. I do a lot of sewing and my snips still last me 6 months plus. And I cut all kinds of crazy things with them. I have heard the aluminium trick where you fold up some aluminium or aluminum, depending on where you live and how you pronounce it. And then you cut through it. I have not had a lot of luck with it, but I have tried it at least. All right. So I'm going to just do the same thing again. 1 and 2, fold them into the center. Now this way that I'm doing it took me a little while to perfect. I used to go up, do one side, and then come back down and do the other. But after a little bit of practice, this way is definitely quicker. Now I'm just going to do one at a time so that they don't unravel because I don't know how long that would last. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to start with a reverse. I'm going to hold them out of the way, that helps. And then I'm just going to fold it so that the edges are touching and I can stitch down. Now the reason why I don't want to go too fast is because I don't want the stitches to get too short because it's sticking. This being a weird faux suede, it has got like a weird texture to it. and I don't want it sticking if I can help it. Okay, so I'm going to hold these. You're meant to hold them. You meant to stitch and back stitch, and that avoids the nest, the bird's nest underneath. And back stitch. Oh, look at that, no bird's nest. Love it. So there's another one. Rinse and repeat. You can actually start from anywhere when you're doing this double fold. So that time I started right kind of in the middle. It doesn't really matter. It only matters if you have a tendency to pull, in which case your ends will be crooked. So as a general rule and tip, you can start in the middle, and then when you get close to the end, so about here to there away, come to the end, stick it down, and then join up back in the middle. And you'll stop like a weird angle thing happening at the end, because sometimes we tend to kind of push it and it'll be crooked. All right. Fold it in half, stick it under. Now, I don't have enough hands to do that and reverse. So that, the holding of the bird's nest thing won't work if you're starting with a reverse, which you usually do if your machine doesn't want to cooperate. Now the main reason I get fake nails is for moments like this, because my actual finger that never gets too close to that needle. And touch wood, I have never actually stabbed myself through the finger with a needle, ever, which is awesome. All right, on, reverse, and I can let go. And back stitch. Now this skinnier one that you cut, we're not doing that yet, because that is not a strap like this. Last one. So you can go along and do one side and then come back and do the other. I just don't like it as much. And back stitch. It actually didn't twist as much as I thought it was going to, so there you go. But it is still good practice if you think that it might. Alright, so we have done that page, we have done all of them. Top stitch the lot. Next up, we are doing our main cool oval piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some double-sided tape and we're going to put it along the edge of the stabilizer piece that you have put here. So whatever you used for your stabilizer, I have used what I call base stabilizer on my website, which is essentially fancy, glorious kind of cardboard that irons on. It's a non-woven, so it's a fancy sewing cardboard. Now you can see that this is very clearly a curve. So what I'm getting is a lot of these little pinches. I'm trying to just ignore them for the most part, because once I take the tape off, you don't want to actually fold that over on itself. You kind of just want to ignore it, because once you take the tape off, the backing off, the tape is actually a lot more flexible, so you won't have as much trouble with it. And then I'm going to get back to the start. I'm going to lift off part of the start so that I can overlap the tape to make sure that there are no gaps because of what it's about to do. And then I'm going to chop it and stick it on and then rip that off. Like so. Then I'm going to take my snips, because we all know I love my snips, and I'm just going to start making little snips all the way around. Now, the smaller you make them, the nicer your curve will be, but you don't want to make them too small or you'll be here forever. Alright, the snips are the easiest way to do this. You can use scissors though, obviously. If that's what floats your boat, you go right ahead. I'm just going to work my way the whole way around. This is actually really nice vinyl to snip. I'm not sure if this is discontinued or not. I did get it at Spotlight on a sale randomly, but I can't tell you if they still have it or if it's discontinued, because I have had it for a while. Right, done. So now that we've snipped it all, we're just going to pull them all back like this and stick them on the double-sided tape. Now, I'm going to do several at a time, but it is going to take a minute. And I'm just rotating it around to make it as easy for me as possible. I'm doing about 6 at a time, not that it really matters. Right, one done. So now we have this glorious, on the outside it should look lovely and smooth, and on the back it should look like a little bit of a nightmare. But that's a good thing. Now, they do also, I think the pattern says to put clips on it, and they have a lot of clips. I'm just going to put it on ones that I think are going to be problematic. They feel like they might lift, or they're looking a bit dodgy. So I'm just going to kind of put a few around. I'm not going to put heaps. Like, see that one? That one's going to get a clip because it popped up. And that one's going to pop up. I can see that. But you put as many as is comfortable. The pattern does have like 50 going on, which if your vinyl isn't as nice as mine and it doesn't want to stay down, that would be why you use more. But this one's being quite behaving, I guess is the word I'm after. Alright, so here's where we get a little bit trickier. We're going to need a ruler, and we're going to need, I'm going to use an erasable pen in case I mess this up. Not that I think that I will, but you also just never know. So, we now have to draw a line going around. And I can tell you that the first line's 1/2 inch. I just don't quite remember what the next one is. I'm going to have to look that up because I'm pretty sure it's not 1/2 inch. What's going on, Knuckles? My dog is like prancing next to me. So I am just following this around. I'm doing like short little bursts. Like so. Obviously the straighter bits you can get a bit of a longer line in. You could also just make lots of little nicks if you don't want to rotate your ruler like I am. But I've had a lot of practice. This is how I trace out sewing patterns on a curve with a ruler. So this way works for me. Ah, look at that. Right, first line done. Now we get to do another line, which I'm pretty sure is this one. So again, it does take a little bit of patience to draw this. but drawing is going to help. I promise. Obviously, I should have grabbed a smaller ruler, but these things happen. So this second line is slightly further away than the first one. Just if you all think I'm drawing crooked lines, I am not. I'm actually, for a change, following the pattern. It's just occurred to me, I don't think I've put my phone on silent. Alright, I'm going to finish this up, put my phone on silent so it doesn't randomly beep, and I'll stick all this back and then we'll come back. Alright, finished drawing my line. Now we're going to add some tape. So I'm going to do the same thing as before, where it's going to have random bumps, and we're just going to essentially ignore them, because it's not going to matter. Now this one's obviously going to be a bit more tricky, because it's not as stiff, so it won't sit as still while you're trying to do this, which is why I'm ignoring the bumps even more than I did before. They will smooth out. It is a big curve we're trying to achieve here. You'll also notice I'm still patting, I'm not smoothing with my fingers, I'm just patting it down. It is helping with the bumps. And we are getting there. Oh, that was actually quicker than the other one. Look at me go. Right, so I'm just going to lift up the start of the other tape, as well as chop that off so it overlaps. That way we won't have any gaps in the holding. And then pull it off. Preferably without it sticking to anything in the process. Alright, now again we need to snip around. So you're snipping just before the line, which is what we did before. So whatever you did to the first one, you need to do to this one. So if you snip just past the line on your last one, do the same again, because these need to be the same size. Now, because this is fabric, I'm fairly convinced that this is not working out the way I thought. Do you want to know why? My insulation interfacing is sticking, but it's not stuck to the fabric properly, which essentially means that it's not sticking. So this side is the one that's going to have the million clips, because it's not staying the way I was hoping. Like right there. The interfacing stuck, but obviously I didn't steam it enough. And it's not sticking properly. That is my fault, by the way. It's not actually my interfacing. I have been rushing today. I know that about myself, and I will deal with the consequences. So, if this is you're at home and you're having the same issue, if you can, put the backing back on this and re-steam it. Or you can just use a lot of clips like I'm going to do. Either or will work out just fine. See, most of it's stuck. It's just that little bit there. I also could have trimmed these before I put the tape down or before I put the backing off. It's whatever makes you comfortable, really. I'm still not getting, even though I want this to go quicker, I'm still not making my snips too far apart, because then you won't have a nice curve. It'll be more jagged and rigid, which is what we don't want. Yeah. Alright, next few. Now you don't have to do them like I am. You can snip them all like I did on the first one and then turn it up. But this feels like it's working for me, so I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to make sure you do your snips all the way. Don't make them fall short because it'll leave dodgy bits. Alright, so we've done over half. That's a good start. Also, don't snip your finger. Keep them out of the way. Feels like a pretty obvious sentence, and yet I did nearly just snip my finger because I was a little bit too involved with the snipping process. We've all been there. I'm going to put 2 in there, like so. Alrighty. Make sure it folds all the way up to the first line that you drew. And because I've done this in erasable ink, even if I don't iron it away, eventually it will fade. You also won't see it because it's not super strong ink. Alright. Now again, we're going to put clips anywhere we feel that's going to misbehave. This one's not stuck on properly, so I'm just going to grab it and stick it properly. And a good way to check is to turn it over and see if you've got any kind of jaggedy bits popping out, which I now don't. Yay! So now we're going to take this one and we're going to put them together, right sides together. Oh. Look at that. I can see more misbehaving. And then we just need to line this up. I'm gonna go around the circle and pay attention. So I'm starting here and making sure that it's lining up on the inside more so than the outside. I can live with if out here is a little bit dodgy because we got overexcited in our snipping. But we need the inner circle that we've just spent all that time on to fit. That is important. So there. And we're just going to line it up really well. And then add some outer clips. And it should all, for the most part, fit together lovely. Alright, what have I done over this side? So I've got this little bit of a bubble, so I'm just working it down this way, like that. And then we're going to do the other end. Whoops. So this requires a lot of wonder clips. You can also do it in sections. So you could sew a section. If you don't have a lot of clips, you can sew a section and then take them off and do another section. I will not be doing that because this room has hundreds, literally hundreds of clips. Now again, see how that's lifting up? So while I'm here, I'm just going to also add clips to that so it doesn't annoy me. Okay, 1 and 2 and 3. Move that aside. I'm going to move that so I don't knock it over because I can feel that coming. Now, I'm going to make sure my needle is up. And I'm just going to start wherever. What is my seam allowance? Seam allowance is important. Now, I'm going to stop and put all my clips back in the skull because I like a clear area to work. It does make for better sewing because you're not bumping into things that are otherwise in your way. So I get a handful and then I stop to put them away. And we're going to backstitch. Trim off those tails, and then I'm going to grab my zigzag scissors. These are the Fiskars ones. Still going strong. And I'm just going to trim that edge. Now, if you don't have zigzag scissors, you can do the clip thing like we did to the inside. It's just going to help the curve sit nice and curvy. I know that doesn't sound like a very good sentence, but it's true. So I'm using the full length of the blade with this, and that way it won't hurt your hand as much, because even though they are spring-loaded, you are cutting through a few layers of stuff right now. And vinyl's not exactly thin to cut through to begin with. Right, so that's done. That's just a nice big bit that's going in the bin. So now that we've got this jagged edge, when I turn it through, it is going to sit flatter, theoretically. I say theoretically, because there's always a chance that it won't. But look how lovely that's sitting. That is a good looking pocket. So I'm just going to finger press around to make sure that it's all going to sit nicely. If you need to, grab it and do a Tory squish, because that will also help it to sit nicely. Like that. And then see here, all of these bits have lifted up. But that doesn't matter because now I'm going to come along with my many, many clips, and I'm going to clip both layers together so that they are even and glorious. And this time I am going to use an awful lot of clips. Now you can also use a double-sided tape on the inside to do this, but I feel like clips are going to be my best bet, for me at least, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm making sure it all lines up, tucking it under where it needs to. And I'm just working my way around. And I'm making all the clips face up towards the vinyl. But you can do it the other way if you'd prefer. But I want the feed dogs of my machine on this side because I think it's going to work better. So we are getting somewhere. I'm about halfway, give or take. Just want to pull this up. I was going to stop and go to the other side, but I feel like I'm on a roll. And why wreck a good thing? So this is where I'm going to have the most trouble because some of the stuff's lifting because the stabilizer is not properly bonded to my fabric, but it's not going to be a big issue because you can literally just tuck them in like that and add a clip. And again, we're going to tuck it in and add a clip. Now this is a little bit fiddly, but the bag is freaking adorable, so worth it in my opinion. And like I said, you can, if you wanted to, double-sided tape all of this together. I just feel like I personally would have had better chance with the clips. And you can see I have used a lot of clips this time. So if you needed to do that the first round, that is also okay. Don't feel bad about your clip usage. Promise, nobody is judging you. Some days I just feel like using clips and I probably don't even need them. Right, so I'm going to flip this over so I can see better and tuck all of those edges in so that it's going to behave the way I want it to. Like that. And then we're going to add clips on, and I'm just going to make them face out again. But would you look at that? Beautiful. Moving down, we have done that. Okay. So now I need a ruler. And it says, working from the lining side, like this. That looks about right. Oh, no, hold on. There we go. That's now even. So we're doing this. Need to find the halfway mark. So I might put a clip on the outside to find my halfway mark, because then that will differ from the clips on the inside. Or alternatively, if you've got different coloured clips, you can use a special coloured one. So we need to do that. On the ridge of the connector ends, mark a line. I haven't marked a line, but I've put a clip. And then we are going to grab a ruler. And so from here, we need to go down and grab a removable pen. So if that's the center there, we're going to go here. And we need to mark on the inner side of the circle as well. So you might have to move your clip for that. So I'm measuring down on the outer edge and then the inner edge. If you've got a wider ruler than me, you won't have to move as much. So then center, mark, mark, hold on, there's a thing in my way, right, and then this side, we're going to mark, and we're going to mark. Excellent. That looks about right. Do that on both sides, and then we're going to stitch from mark to mark. Makes sense? Love it. I'm going to have nice long tails. We're not going to back stitch for this because I'm going to pull them through and tie them off. So from here, we are going to top stitch. Top stitching is usually 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to stitch. I didn't back stitch. It's very important. One of those few rare moments in life I'm going to tell you not to back stitch at either end. Alright, we're going to pull out a nice long tail. Then I'm going to grab the back one and it's going to create a loop so I can pull through that front one. And then we're going to tie it off because it looks neat and beautiful. And because we are going to stitch the rest of this in a minute, once we do the next bit, and you want it to look like one continuous magical line. So usually I would just backstitch, but because of the style of the bag, it's going to look so much more magical to someone looking at it, being like, how did you do that? If they can't see where you start and stopped. So again, I'm pulling it to the back because you won't see this bit. It needs to exist, but it won't be like, you won't be able to inspect where these knots are, so you won't see them. I'm doing 3 double knots because it makes it feel nice and secure. Right, we can do the other outer edge now. So again, I'm going to hold these and not backstitch, and it does take a lot in me to not backstitch. Has to be a very conscious choice on my brand's behalf. And to there, and then again with the tails, flip her over. We're going to pull on that. It should create like a little loop, and then I just grab my snips to pull it through. You can also use a needle if you're worried that your snips will cut it, because that would not be a good day. Some people use glue on this. Me and my triple knot feel safe enough. But you can do as many knots as you want, really. You can add a dab of glue to it. I know, like a lot of leather working, that's what they do. And again, this won't be seen. But I feel like my knots are enough. Whoop. Alright, so now we're going to do the tricky one. And I'm going to put this into here, and I'm going to have to start taking off clips. So I'm going to start here. So again, with the tails, I want to hold them so that they don't go all bird's nested and horrible. We're going to start here, and as we go around, I'm going to be nice and slow and take off the clips as I go. You don't want to just rip them all off at once, or it's going to wreck all your beautiful holding that you've made it do. And nice long tail and snip. Now I will come back and tie those in a minute. I am, however, in the meantime, going to start here. I'm testing to see which way I like better. If you've got a large enough throat, I think I like doing it the other way more. But if you've got a smaller machine, then definitely try and have the bulk out while you top stitch. And tails. So again, we're going to flip her over. We're going to tug on this, which will create a loop, and then you just want to pull on that loop, but not too hard. If it's stuck, don't use your snips to keep pulling hard. Grab like a needle or something, because it's less likely to break your thread. It also depends on what needle and thread and everything you're using as to how easy that will happen for you. Each situation is different. Mine's coming through quite easily. I think that has a lot to do with the type of vinyl I'm using today. Next one. So if you can't get the loop, if you hold this and do like a full circle, it will bring up the loop no matter what. The full circle is a foolproof way for that to happen. The downside to this is I do not have enough tail there. And that's going to be a real problem for me in about a minute or two. Also, my first stitches didn't work. Another problem for me, which I'm not loving. So I have done the naughty back stitching because all my tails were just a bit messed up there. But that's right. If you can't do the tie for whatever reason, you can backstitch. And to be honest, because my thread color is very similar to my vinyl, you can't see it anyway. If you're using a contrasting thread, you might. But if you're very, very careful with your back stitches, it also wouldn't matter. So don't be worried if it breaks. Just go over a little bit. Excellent. So now we have those bits stitched. Did that, pulled them through, tied them off. Awesome. So now we are going to attach this to our overlay panels, which are our half circle bits, which are fabulous. Remove, apply some double-sided tape. Oh, okay, so we're just stitching this all the way down. I thought it was a sneaky little pocket. Carefully over stitch the main panel. And then pull all the bits through. So we actually just stitch this the whole way on. It's a bit clever, although I thought it was a little slip pocket. I mean, we could do it like that. So basically, we're now just going to stick this down, lining it all up, and then stitch it on. So it's like this nice little accent panel. I'm going to do one better. I'm going to do one side the way the pattern says, and then I'm going to do one made my idea in my brain, and then one of them will be a slip pocket, because that's really cool. But let's do the way the pattern says first. So it says double-sided tape on the back. So let's do that. Boom. Like that. Oopsies. I do that a lot. Don't worry about it. And then, how to line it up is the real question here. Okay, so we need a ruler to make sure we line this up correctly. Boom. Flip her over. And then make sure that that is correct the whole way around. 'Tis important. You need to have enough seam allowance. Okay, so it is on. We are now going to stitch this top bit and the outer bit. Now again, I'm going to hold the tails so that we can just go into that very last hole that we had before, and it will look like a continuous sewn seam, even though it's not, because it's tricky. And I like that. Oh, and I just dropped the other side on the floor. We all know I had to drop something. It's not a Tory video if I don't drop something. Alright, nice big bits. Flip her over. Pull it through, tie off some knots, 1 and 2 and 3. Other side, pull, makes a loop, pull that through, knot it, oops, I'll let go of that then. 1. Now your first knot's never going to be tight, so here's a fun little thing. So I've done the first knot down here and it's super loose. Now I'm going to pull my fingers in and pull that out, and then kind of just squeeze it together so that it stays down nice and tight. And then the third one really locks that in. You can keep going if it makes you feel better, but 3 for me is the magic number. That up there. So again, we're going to come to here. We're going to put our needle into the last hole that we made, like so. And then we need to pull these off and stitch along there. Now that that's down so much, I can probably pull all of these off. I'm not really worried it's going to go anywhere. And that's that last hole. So again, snip it off, flip her over, pull on that. Tie it off, down nice and tight. Number 3. Sometimes if I still don't think it's holding, I will do a 4th one. Pull. Now mine are coming through quite easily. It's definitely the vinyl, because I don't have this much ease when I use my Pacifica. The downside to that is it means it's made a very large hole. Alright, so that one is on the way the pattern says. Now we're going to do one a modified way that I've just come up with in my head and really hoping that it's going to work. I just had to grab this. So I'm going to put that on my lap. while I am going to just finish top stitching around here. I'm going to make this one a slip pocket because in my head it's going to be fabulous. And I could be wrong and I might have to go back and fix this yet. Stranger things have happened. So I'm just making sure I do all the way up to the original hole. And that way, again, it's going to look continuous and glorious. Flip her over. Pull. And knot. You'll also notice I don't have any stabilizer on here. This bag's going to be quite stable because of the outer panel that's also on there. One and two and three. Excellent. So with that done, now I'm going to do the same thing here. We need to get it lined up evenly and then get my ruler, bring it down and over. So we should have this nice little gap here too. That is a deliberate thing. Don't know why, but I'm having more trouble placing this side than the other one. Now, obviously I didn't put double-sided tape on, so I'm just gonna have to be really careful not to shift it. If you're using really slippery fabrics, I would suggest alligator clips actually, because they are longer, so you can put them on like this, right? And then they're gonna grab both your layers and hold it in place. So that would be my life advice if you are concerned about it shifting at all, which I'm really not. Now, here's hoping that my theory has paid off, because if not, I don't really know what, actually. Okay, we're going to circle that and then pull that back. So in my brain, this is where my phone would live if I was carrying this bag. That's how it's going in my head. Easy to get to. It's like your slip pockets. You can either put your phone or like your sunglasses. Easy access stuff. And the rest would go in the zippered section. In my brain, this is very cool. I just really hope it's worked out. And we won't really know until I finish the bag. But at this stage, we now have a cute little slip pocket there. Which again, could go terribly wrong later, but we're gonna see. So we've done that. We've done that. We've done all of that. Where are we up to? Okay. Here we go. So we're back to marking. I need to get some zipper tape. Now, I hadn't actually decided on what zipper tape to use for this. I was thinking, did I just want to do black? Although it's brown mainly on the outside. Aha! Let's do black with gold, because that will be pretty. And then we can do gold hardware everywhere, which I very clearly hadn't decided up until now. Sometimes it really is fun to just wing it. You don't have to have a full plan going, guys. The creative process part's fun. All right, so we need this. And we are going to, before I remove it completely, and the pattern does say to remove it completely, but the reason I'm not is because if you're super new to this, you're going to bend, you have to bend opposite sides to get your 90 degrees, and if you do it when you've completely separated it. The chances of doing the same side twice are pretty high. And I know this because I've done it. So I like to keep them joined. And then I'll do my little stitches. Now we're not doing a lot, as you can see. That's enough. Just enough to hold it in place. And then trim off the tails. And then we're going to do the same to this side. Right? You're going to make sure that they're even. Even is the key. And then I'm just going to stitch. Now I'm stitching closer to the outside part of the tape. And that way these stitches won't be seen. So they can be any color you want. It won't matter. And then trim off those tails so that they don't get in your way. Excellent. Now, take a ruler. And then we want to mark in I'm going to do it there and there. And I assume on the other end, but if not, it won't matter because it's erasable and we won't see it anyway. Done. Oh no, you should have 4 markings. I did that correctly. Fantastic. Choose your desired opening direction. So if I'm pretending this is I think I want my zips to open here. So now you can separate them. And we're going to put, I assume we're putting the zip on upside down because that would make sense to me. Yes, we are. Fantastic. So, with the non-zipper edge facing here, we're just going to clip it at the marking that you made. Now normally, I always put this on the lining and do it backwards, but there will be a reason why we're doing it this way. So I'm going to put a clip where we need to stop sewing. So we're only going to sew there to there, and we're going to have this glorious tail, which automatically tells me I'll be using a zip end today. So I'm going to clip it down and then we're going to baste it. Now by basting, if you've never done basting before, you just want to sew within the seam allowance so that your stitches won't be seen later. So I'm going to do basically an 1/8 of an inch, really, really close to the edge, and I need to start at the marking that I made. So I'm going to start here, I'm going to stitch and I'm going to back stitch. And then I'm just going to go along slowly. And back stitch at that end as well. Spin it around, and I'm going to do what's called a jump stitch, where I just go straight to the other side. This might seem crazy to you, but you will waste less thread and it's a little bit quicker. And because we just went across, it's not going to damage anything. And again, I'm just basting within the seam allowance, or sewing within the seam allowance. I've got my idea of where I need to stop, and then I'm going to back stitch. Yes, Knuckles. He's going to start barking at me in a minute. Aren't you? Okay. So our zip is now attached upside down. It should look the wrong way because when we stitch it later, it'll then be the right way. So don't. Yes, Knuckles. Right, I'm going to feed my dog and then we're going to come back. Alright, the puppy has been fed. So, this bit is temporarily done. So we're going to pop that aside. And now we're going to grab our gusset piece and that weird skinny strip. Which is actually not that weird, but that's just what I'm calling it. So, again with the double-sided tape down the center of this, but we're not double folding it this time, we're just single folding it. You want to try and get it as close in the center as possible. I, over time, have learned to eyeball it. But feel free to draw a line. It's not like it'll be seen. You could even use a normal pen. I have been known to do that quite a lot. Okay, so now I'm just going to fold both sides into the center. And that should give us a nice skinny strap. In a perfect world, it is 3/4 of an inch. I just had to double check that, because sometimes my maths is off when I'm rushing. But I cut it right, so yay! So I'm just folding along like so, and then I'm gonna grab, now in the pattern, I'm actually gonna rub this on the table. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna further crease that. See how it started off rough and is now smooth? That's because I've pushed it all down lovely. So I'm using my chunky 3/4 inch D-rings, square rings, not D-rings. I knew that. Oh, and I just accidentally threw my stuff out. And I just need to know how far we are folding it under. And let's see. So from there to there and over, and then I'm just going to put some clips to hold it in place. Now, these rings have a join, so I will be hiding the join so that nobody knows that it exists. So I'm going to go there, and then fold it over. And then I'm going to use 2 clips. I'm using one on each side to hold them on. And then we just center it. Now, again, with the double-sided tape, to help you position it, you can put a piece right down the center. Just be aware that you will probably sew through part of this. So depending on your machine, you may not want to do that. But that's entirely up to you. So I'm going to take this, I take off my backing piece, throw it in the bin, flip her over, line it up. Now, you can use a ruler, but I'm getting pretty good at this, lining up with my eyeball sightness. So that looks like the center. I'm just going to pat it down, and then I'm going to check. My fingers are both the same at the ends, so I'm happy with that. I'm now going to stitch that down. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go back and forth through the first hole. I'm also going to put a rivet in that because I really just don't want it to misbehave. So I'm going to go nice and slowly because, again, there's now 2 layers of stickiness, and depending on your machine, it may not like that. Also, depending on how old your needle is. This is your reminder that you get 9 hours of sewing out of each needle, before you should change it. I know a lot of people wait until they break, but that's actually really bad for your machine. So 9 hours of actual sewing. Of course, that is dependent on what you're sewing. But if you're making bags, do 9 hours of bag making, or essentially 3 or 4 bags, and then change your needle. Because you can't see it, but the end of the needle gets more and more blunt every time it stabs through things. So after 9 hours of stabbing through layers and layers of vinyl, the end is no longer pointy, which means it's harder on your machine because it's got to use more force to stab everything through. It's like a whole thing. Oh, and I just ran out of bobbin. That was weirdly perfect timing. Also, Also, depending on what bag you're making, this would be really cool in a contrasting color to put there. I have to do a bobbin, so I'm going to have to hit pause again because you don't want to watch that. And then we're going to put some rivets in. Here are my rivets. I have done my new bobbin. So I'm just going to put a rivet right in the center here. And this is just going to be added protection for my own personal happiness. You don't have to put the rivets, but they do look pretty. If you wanted to, you could also put them like all the way along, so it's a nice decorative setting if you wanted to. I mean, each to their own. You do what you like. So I'm just going to push these through like so. Flip it over. Put some caps on the back of them. 1 and 2. And then set them. This is both, yeah, added stability and it's pretty. Because I like pretty. That's why we make our own bags, right? For pretty. Right, I'm happy with that. So now we are going to, it says to clip these down out of the way so that we don't accidentally stitch them. And that is very good life advice. I'm going to push the square ring down out of the way, and I'm going to start here because I need it to match up. So I'm going to put 3 clips there, and then I'm going to follow around, and I'm going to push that ring down and come to the other side and do the same thing. So 3 clips here. Whoops, and that one's going on the floor. Now, if you wanted a super, super firm bag, you could, if you wanted to, add some more stabilizer or something onto here. I think mine will be fine. But if you've done a fabric bag, you may want to do that. Just something to consider. Now, I'm just going to work my way along. Now that I've got both ends on, essentially I just need to now make sure that all of this fits into the gap provided. Now sometimes I can go left to right with no problem, or right to left in this case. And then sometimes we have a bit of a drama and I might have to maneuver some stuff. I don't always get it first round. Sometimes I'll have to go and adjust because I've got a little bit extra hanging out somewhere, which we obviously don't want, but these things happen. So I got that first go, which I'm genuinely a little bit surprised about. Where are we up to? Here. And then we're going to sew it. I was just double checking what the seam allowance was. So we're going to stitch. I'm going to go back to a joining stitch length, actually. First time in the bag that I've actually done that. And I'm having the gusset facing up. You will find that it is much easier to stitch if you do that. I'm going slowly to make sure that I get the right seam allowance. And I'm taking off the clips right as I get up to them so that the bag has no chance to shift while I'm stitching. And when stopping, always stop with your needle down. And when we get to the end, we're going to back stitch. Done. Happy days. Now, we're just going to fold this over like a taco. Oh my god, it looks like a taco. I love it so much more now. So I'm going to put 3 clips there. And then I'm going to come to this end and I'm going to do the same thing. And I do this with all bags with gussets. Sometimes I'll even do the bottom. If it's easy to find the center bottom of stuff, I will sometimes also go there and then just divide the rest up. But in this particular case, it's working out pretty fine that I don't need to do that. And I will tell you right now, it doesn't always work out in my favor. You also have to remember that this is like half a circle. So with circle work, you also want to go slowly. I'm doing this in my lap so that you can see on the video because My camera today is pointed right at the green machine. I promise that's not just for dramatic effect. I'm trying to get it so you can see the most. Alright. So again, we've got it done. It looks cool. So we're going to sew it gusset side up, which is why all my clips are facing the gusset side, because I find it easy to pull them off while I'm sewing if they're face up. If I do this trick and they're face down, you'll find that I will stop a lot more when sewing because it's just not as easy. You also notice I'm not going very fast. I'm also fighting with the top of this a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. So I don't want to create any puckers where I'm sewing because I've just decided to go too fast. So slow and steady because it is a nice gentle curve. And backstitch at the end. And then trim off the tails. Awesome. Outside is done. Yay! Now for the inside. So the inside consists of, I've got my two sides, I've got my gusset, and then you've got whatever pockets you're doing. Now, these are my zipper pockets, but I have forgotten to cut the facing because apparently I am that silly. So I need to cut a piece of facing. So a facing, we're not going to see it, so you could literally make it out of bright pink fabric and nobody's going to see it. I won't be doing that. I will use the same fabric just for, you know, not dramatic effect, the opposite of that, continuity. But if you didn't want inner pockets, you could just sew that and off you go. But we are going to put a zipper pocket, so I need the facing piece. Right, I cut a piece. It's no real. It just needed to be wider than this that we're doing, and it didn't even need to be that thick, really. I don't actually know how thick it is. This piece is 3 3/4 by 10, but I honestly just made that up. That's not part of the pattern. Now in the pattern, it did say to cut one of these a little bit shorter than the other one, but I cut both of mine the same size and I will show you why when we get to that. Pick one of your pieces. On the back of your facing piece, I am going to draw a zipper box. I am going to use, that is the wrong template. Of course it is. I need it this long and this thick. So this is the 3/8. So if I was using a size 3 zip, I'd use this one. But I want the 1/2 inch because it's got the bigger hole. And all my templates are a bit messy. I cleaned my floors today and not my drawers. And we just don't really want to talk about that right now. And is that it there? No, that's not it either. Why have I got every size but what I need? Oh, whatever. So, in the middle of this, because we do still care about the middle of things, it is going to be easier to line this up if I put the box in the middle of this. That way. So my template things have a middle line. So this is the size I need. I think I'm probably making this more complicated than it needs to be. But we want that, and then I want it not that thick. I want it the 1/2 inch hole. So that's what this one is. This one was just a bit long. But I can work with that. It's always easier to make them longer or shorter. That looked a lot more complicated than it needed to be. I promise it's not that hard. So I'm also just going to trim this down. I probably got a little bit excited with this fabric. That's better. Now, center point. I'm going to fold this in half. I'm going to find the center point. And this is how I'm going to line the zip up in the middle. Because we all know I love middles. So, that notch that I cut there is the middle. That notch is also the middle. And that is where I'm going to put my zipper pocket. Right there. So now I'm going to stitch the 2 long lines that I drew on my facing piece. We're going to backstitch, because with the exception of earlier, we do always backstitch. Backstitching is a good thing, people. Locks your stitches in for you. And that fabric is not loving this size needle without interfacing. Did you see how that pinched up a little bit there? It's just the facing fabric, so it's not a huge deal. But that's because the size of my needle is too big for the fabric. It just didn't like it. It's not the end of the world though, because it's just a facing piece. But it was fine for the other bits because they've all got interfacing. Makes them sturdier. Now, I'm just going to triangle out these corners. Like that. And if you wanted to, you could add a zipper accent around this, which would be also very cool. So, I'm going to finger press this. So I'm going to finger press that flat. And then I'm going to do up the other side. And get those long edges pressed. And then I'm just going to push all of the facing through the hole. Using my thumbs to really kind of pull out those edges. And then I'm going to roll that down. And it should go on that fold really nicely without an iron. And that's because we finger pressed it first when it was the other way. So it kind of now has muscle memory for that crease. I know it doesn't have a muscle, but you get my point, I think. So, with this, we now need some more zipper tape. And I'm just looking through this is my leftover small bits. And I don't throw them out for purposes like this. That one is perfect. Doesn't happen often. They do sit there for a while, but that is exactly the size that I need for today. So, yay! Now, I'm going to take this. Put it on the edge, and again we're going to do that basting thing I was talking about earlier where we just kind of sew it to the edge. We are still going to backstitch though because we want it to stay where it's told. Oh, and see, I missed that whole section. Got a little bit too excited about basting and missed the fabric. These things do happen and it's okay. Right, so now we're going to do the other side. So again, this one's going to be right sides up. The zipper is also going to be right sides up. And then we're going to stitch it. Like that. And now we can put the zipper pull on. If you had done it earlier, it would have potentially just got in your way. I decided to go with Smooth Criminal because I was feeling it. I don't know. And then I'm just going to get it in and kind of, if I can, I'm going to stop it in the middle like that, or close enough to the middle, right? No, that is crooked. I don't like it. Let's go again. So one tooth was out then, and that would have annoyed me, so I'm going to fix it. However, if you're new to bag making, you probably didn't notice that it was one tooth out. But I could see the little divot, and it was going to annoy me. So, open this out so it's a big flat piece, and make sure that your zipper pull is along the zipper tape backwards. So that the zip closes that way, so you want to have this the other way on there. And then we're just going to lay this over here and stitch around it. So I'm going to lift up the zipper foot. Now I have discovered my new favorite way of doing this. So because the zip's halfway, I'm going to come to which way it closes in front of it. And I'm going to start stitching here. And then go around. And then we're going to go up. And then when I get to the zipper pull, I want to stop with my needle down. And then I can zip it completely closed. And now the zipper won't annoy me for the whole rest of the sewing. I'm just tugging on that facing to make sure it's not poking out. And when we get back to the start, we're going to back stitch. Now I happen to have started and stopped on a black part, so it's less obvious where I've done my stitching. So now you should have this with your pocket open. Now here's where that thing before comes into play. You were meant to cut these pockets so that they would close to be the same size, but I just cut them both a large size, so now I can just even them up now. The only reason I do it this way is because then I don't have to think about which side's on top. I can just do. So we're going to fold this back and I'm going to stitch down the side of the zipper pocket. But I'm not going to stitch the bottom because that's where my final stitches are going to be, I think. Otherwise you can leave a side of your curve open and hand stitch it shut. But we all know I do not like hand stitching, so that's probably not going to happen. Right. Now all this extra part of the facing you can cut off if it's going to annoy you. It's not really going to bother me, but I'm going to chop it off just to show you, just in case it does. I'm not being neat about it, you won't see it. I just don't want the bag to have unnecessary weight. Some people are very conscious of how heavy their bags are. So that is now the zipper pocket. So I'm going to take, this pocket's actually probably going to be too big, I might have to cut it down a little bit. Just so it fits like that. That's much better. Alright, so I'm going to do exactly what I did before. And we're going to join here with a couple of clips. Now this is either going to go better or worse. Actually, I might try and sew it without clips and see how we go. Worst case scenario is I have to unpick everything. But I think I'm going to be alright. So I have to make sure that everything is perfectly lined up as I go around. Now, this is like a next level thing. So if you're not a beginner sewer, you should try doing something like this. It's very empowering if you get it right. Which I don't always do, and I may have to unpick this yet. So don't get too excited. That does not always work, guys. I'd just like to point that out, but it does feel really good when it does. So that's one half in. Now we're going to do the other half. And again, we still want to do it gusset up. We just don't have all the clips there. So I'm going to stitch and back stitch. And I'm going slowly. So I'm just making sure that the fabric is perfectly lined up. I would never do this on vinyl. It never works. I don't know why, but I can only do this with linings. I'm only that magical. If I try and do this with outers, I always have like this much that's wrong. I don't know why. Linings are just a lot more pliable, I guess. So we're going to flip that through. And then we're going to take our bag. Now we need to push this down so it's out of the way like that. And we also, I'm going to clip the zip down to that bit that we just pushed down. Because if I leave it where it is, there is a small chance that I will stitch it. So I've just clipped it to this little bit that was going over here, so it's down out of the way. And now I'm just going to shove this in. Now I always do the shortest bits first, so I'm going to line it up seam to seam at the gusset part. And my clips are going to face the lining. Then I'm going to do the opposite end. And I'm not too confident about getting this whole bag through the zipper, so I may have to unpick something at some point, and we're going to work that out in a minute. So if I can't get it through the zipper pocket, which the more I think about it, the more it's not going to happen, I am instead going to unstitch one side of the lining and I'll pull it through the lining and then stitch the lining back up through the zipper pocket because we left that bottom open. So that will still be my final stitch. It's just we might have to do some unpicking. Because the Decaville, or not the Decaville because I don't use Decaville, but the base stabilizer that I used for that cool front bit probably won't go through that zipper pocket. So I'm just clipping this on, not doing anything fabulous there. Clipping it around. I just have made sure though that all my clips face the inside because now when I bring it to my machine, I can just slot it under. I am going to bend this back so that I can get in there. And I'm now stitching with this side of my foot up against the zipper tape. Because you've got to remember the zipper tape in there. And I'm bringing this around because it is a 3D object. We all know how I feel about that. If you treat it like a 3D object, you will find that it will stitch together much, much easier than if you're constantly trying to make it flat. It doesn't want to be flat. I mean, it did there, but it doesn't want to be flat here. So to get the most out of this part, you do have to lift it up and around. And backstitch when you get back to the start. So that's done. The tricky bit now is going to be turning it, which I'm not terribly worried about. Although, I'm not getting it through there. I just need to paint peace with that. So I'm going to start clipping. This is a fun fact that you might not know, because I don't do a lot of unpicking. I don't actually unpick anything. I'm going to snip every 3rd or 4th stitch, depending. I don't perfectly count it. I just kind of eyeball it really quickly. I'm going to do every 3rd or 4th stitch, and I'm just going to clip it. And then what's going to happen is from the other side, if we pull the other thread, the whole thing will just come unraveled very, very quickly. So if I pull this now, you can see how easy that was? And it's now made a whole section come undone. Now I'm going to stop there because that should be enough. We don't want to unpick the whole thing. That would defeat the purpose. And then I'm going to go from the center bottom and I'm just kind of going to push so it's turning itself inside out. And I'm going to turn it through that now giant space. And then I just kind of have to attack it a little bit to get it to come through. You want to push on it quite firmly, like so. Then I'm going to open the zipper, grab the lining, and then we're going to just stitch back up. So the reason you didn't want to do the whole thing is because it will make this part trickier, but I think we'll be fine. So I'm going to stitch and back stitch over the last few stitches because that will seal off the old ones. And then I'm just going to go through the same stitch holes that are already there. Because I already stitched it, you can see where you've been. It makes it a lot easier. And when you get back to where you stopped unpicking, just go over those stitches a little bit as well, and that'll lock in the old ones. I just lost my zipper. How did that happen? So I must have missed a bit when I was stitching. Now my zipper's come off on the inside pocket. I can fix it. The first thing we need to do to fix it is get the zipper pulled back on. Yeah. Which sometimes can be trickier than it seems. So this happened because I didn't stitch over enough of the end when I was putting in my zipper course it's going to be tricky. So you want to get both halves in evenly, which is always harder to do when it's attached to a lot of stuff. It will go on. I am nearly there. The reason this is so tricky is because I can't get my finger in behind it like I usually would. So now that it's on, I can see that that has just slipped out, and so I just need to stitch here. So just there has come out. So to fix that, we're going to have to hand stitch, which we all know I hate, but we're going to do it anyway because it's worth it. I always have this needle handy. It is a big enough needle that it will fit my thicker thread. And I always do double thread, string. And I'm just going to put a bunch of knots in the end of that and then chop off the excess tail. Okay, so now to fix this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start underneath so that you won't see my knot. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Then I'm going to stitch back down so that we're not going to see the knot, and you'll barely see that stitch. And then what I want to do is I want to go around the teeth of the zip. So I want to make it so that the zip can't fall off, because if it can't get past my stitches, it won't fall off again. And then I'll just tuck that under and stitch it in. But sealing off the zip is priority 1, so it doesn't slip off again later, because that would really suck. So I'm just going around the teeth. Now obviously, in a perfect world, you wouldn't need to do this, but this is a way to fix. So if you've got a handbag that you love and this has happened, this is a good way to fix it. So now I'm just going to push that so that the ends of the teeth go back into where they were before I missed stitching them. And I'm now going to stitch up and down and seal them in there. Which this one's being tricky because one of the nylon coils has come uncoiled. So we're just going to cut that off as long as it doesn't interfere with my stitches. So then again, we're going to tuck that under and I'm going to come down like that, and then up like that, and then down and into it. So we're essentially just tucking it back under and stitching it in place. Now I didn't even have to stitch it back. I could have just tied off the end of that zip and made peace, but I do want it to still look really cool. So I am taking the time to fix it. And the reason I didn't take this mistake out is because I've actually fixed a lot of other people's bags that they've brought to me that have had this same problem. They opened up the end and the zipper keeps falling off. So this is a really good way to fix that. And then that's my knot. And then trim it off. And so now, fingers crossed, if I do that, see how it doesn't come off now? Yay! Right, finishing the pocket. We're going to tuck these edges in and under and get rid of all of that. Tuck it in and under. Now, if you're new to sewing, you're probably going to want to do some clips on this. Or you can use pins if you are from a dressmaking background, because it is just fabric. I'm going to hold these so that they don't bird's nest. I'm going to do 3 stitches because I meant to do 2 and went too far. My foot got a little bit carried away there. Snip and snip. And tuck that in. Oh my gosh, this is looking amazing. See, and I've now got a little cute pocket. Alright, where am I up to in the instructions? I've done all of that. Do we need to top stitch is my real question. And the answer is yes, we're going to top stitch. Excellent. So I'm just going to fold that out of the way like that. And that one's already out of my way. Now, I always like to top stitch from the top. Funny about that. So what I'm actually going to do on this machine to do it, I'm going to turn the bag inside out. If I was on my cylinder arm, I would just do it the other way. But since that's not an option on this machine, I could have done it lining side up, but I don't want to. So where I think I'm going to need clips to help hold this in place, I'm going to put some, and they are going to face the exterior because that's the way I'm now going to stitch now that I've turned the bag inside out. So you want to pull that zipper up. You want to make sure that the lining is down out of the way. You don't want to have any puckers because we want this to stitch nicely. So again on this end, so the end is where you might have some issues because you've got this bit in the way. All right, probably don't need that attached either. So I'm going to start in a tricky corner because I want to. And I'm going to go up to my decorative stitch length that I was using earlier, which is a 4. And I'm going to start here. Now, as a more advanced bag maker, I'm definitely going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch. However, if you're new to this and you want it to be fabulous and you're nervous, do a full 1/4 of an inch because that extra little bit won't make a huge difference. And it'll actually potentially look a lot neater if you're new to bag making. So I like to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch, but when I was still learning bags, I used to do it at a full 1/4 because it's easier. You're less likely to slip off the edge of the bag if you've got a slightly thicker seam. Nice and slowly, you can see I'm bringing the bag around. It's still a 3D object. We're still using that principle. You also notice even though it's a straight, I'm still not going too fast. I'm pulling with my fingernails. I'm actually putting my fingernails on that zip and pulling it away to make sure that the lining and the exterior aren't getting any kind of lumps or anything. So I'm nearly there. Home stretch, I've got about 1 inch to go. Maybe 2 inches, but still. All right, so I'm gonna go back through the first stitches because I didn't back stitch, and now I'm gonna back stitch, and that locks them all in at the same time. Put them in the bin, trim off those little taily bits, and you can barely see where that is, and more importantly, it'll be down the side of the bag where you don't notice it. Right, back out the right way. Flick them up. So now we need to put on our zipper, which I did decide to do 2 smooth criminal ones. If I had have done a chunky, I could have maybe put like a tassel or something on there, but I decided that I like the look of these better. And don't be afraid to do a different zipper on the inside to the outside. There is no rule that says they have to be the same. So my zipper's on. I just happened to get it first go, which was a bit of a fluke. I've also recently noticed, as of right now, that my child has stole my screwdriver. It's going to make this a lot more tricky, so we might just not do that right this second. Alright, we are now up to all the straps. So the straps can come back now, because then our tub is empty. 1 and 2, put that away. Right, so far we're looking good. This will need a Tory squish, I can already tell, but, and don't worry about the fact that the zip's sticking up, we can deal with that later. So we're going to take the really skinny one, and we need to cut it into, right, done all that. Strap keeper, cut it in half. Okay. So we're going to cut it in half because that's what it says to do. Love it. Fold it, and then we're going to stitch it with our normal seam allowance that we've been doing. Now, please be aware that this is quite thick, so just be careful. I'm going to do 3 stitches and then go back to the first one and do them all again. And then I do the same to this one. Because if nothing else, we want them consistently the same. And then back through the first hole and stitch again. Now it does say to glue these open with super glue, so that they are flat. This is quite thick, so I'm not going to love my chances, but we'll see. We'll see. I can also just bend them open for the purposes of this, but it does say to glue them. And then I imagine we're going to flip it through so that those bits are on the inside. There we go, like that. So that is what we are aiming for. Now I don't have glue that's going to set anytime soon. So I'm going to go back and glue it later. Because it is 9:15 at night and I'm actually supposed to be at a gathering right now. But this was way more fun. Alright, so now we need our strap adjusters, which I forgot to grab. Of course I did. Alright, I'm going to hit pause, go see if I can find my screwdriver and get the strap adjusters because they are integral to the next part. My screwdriver is officially missing and I can't ask my child because he's out. So we will just have to deal without it. So, here we go. Position side connectors mirrored. Huh? That's my strap. So that one's irrelevant for the minute. So we need our shorter ones, our strap adjusters, and these little doodads here. And what we're going to do is, so we need to mirror these in regards to the folded edge. So I'm going to have the folded edge touching like that. So now that they are mirrored. Next you will punch 3 rivet holes in each side. Wait, what? Now you will punch 3 rivet holes in each side connector. Okay. Punch each end up a bit. So each end alright, so up to there. I don't like punching holes this close to the end. It makes me nervous. I don't know why. It just always has. I always like to do up a little bit further. So I've punched the holes there. And then up to there. Ensure the 2 final holes are mirrored. Alright. We did that by laying them down. So there. And there. And flip these over. And we're going to do this end. There and there. Alright, so I need a rivet punch. And I just want to make sure that they are all correct before I botch it. So, I'm going to punch these holes at the end. 1 and 2. And then we're going to come down to the other end where I did stuff. And then there's 1 there. And there's 1 there. And then there's 1 at this end. And 1 at this end. Okay. On our beautiful bag, we are going to take this end, I guess, and go through and under like this. And then we're going to take this and thread it onto, whoops. Oh no, where'd that go? You know what? I will find it in a minute. I'm going to turn the camera up for this because it's going to be way easier. Okay. So, I've gone, this is the hole. So I've got 3 holes. I've got the little ones, and the one that we did in. So I'm going to go in from the inside to the outside of this loop here. I want this to go on here. I want this to go on here. Like that. So slide it on. And then we're just going to adjust it so that these 2 holes are lined up. I'm pretty sure. And then on this one, we're going to put this on here, like that, like that. So that all 3 holes are going to line up like this. Have I got that on the right end or have I done it opposite? I think I've done it opposite. I'm just going off the picture, so give me a second. So let's do it the other end. So the long end, and then up through there. Oh, that's better. Right, so the long end goes down and through. Lined up there. Put this through and back. And then line that up so that all 3 holes perfectly line up. And then we're going to put a rivet. I like that. That is very clever. I get excited about clever things. That's very clever. All right, 1 and 2 and 3. And a back piece, obviously. Right, I'm now happy with that. So I'm going to take my rivet press and I'm going to set that so that they can't come undone. It is done. Love it. So now we have to imitate that on the other side. So, long end, that way, because I need the fold to be going the same direction. I also need the bit I dropped. So, this is the long half. I know it's not half if it's longer, but you get my point, right? So we're going in and up. Then I'm going to thread this on so that the join will face inside the bag. Like that. And up the back. So thread that one in. So it's on like that. This is adjustable, so it doesn't really matter where it is at the moment. And then we're going to take this short edge and we're going to go through the strap adjuster like that. And then down. And we want that one on the outside just because it mirrors the other half. So whichever way you did the other half, you need to do this half the same. Punch it through the 3 holes like that. Put it back on it. Like that. And then before I go any further, I'm going to double check that that is correct. And it is. And it looks fabulous. So now I can set that. You really do want to double check these things. So my join. So if we pretend this is the front, this has got no join part from where we double folded it. And they are both sitting the same. So we are successful. Next up, we are going to attach our shoulder strap, which I imagine I'm just going to put through and then slot down. Oh, I love that. Okay, cool. So we're going to go from the back up and down. And then we're just going to pull it through enough that it also goes into here. And you can just kind of sit it there like that, because that is firm enough. And then we're going to do the same to the other side. So I'm holding it so there's no twists. And then we're going to go through there and down the other side. And then here. Now my vinyl's stiff enough that I can just push that. And then if you want to, you could put not zipper ends, strap ends. But there you go. I just need to put on my zipper end, which is going to prove difficult without my electric screwdriver, but we are going to try it anyway because I want to finish the bag. So if you've never used a zipper end, and it doesn't help that I'm wearing a black shirt, so we're going to fold it so that the end looks like a triangle or a point, and then I'm just going to go back and forth to make sure I'm encasing all of it, and you want to push it as far in as you can get it. Now I know some people do put glue in these. I personally never have, but you are welcome to do that. And then I'm really hoping that I've got another spare screwdriver around. Otherwise, I'm not really sure how I'm going to get this in without any kind of screwdriver. But then you just take the screw and screw it in. It's just like a small Phillips head that you would use to fix like your reading glasses. You know how that little screw seems to always come out? And these ones are also quite pointed on the edge because it is going to drill through that zipper. So we really do need a screwdriver. I'm not sure how to fix that problem. But if we screw that in, then the zip you can just kind of tuck. I would be tucking it through here like that, so it kind of hangs out the side, and then your bag's done. And my bag just happens to have a cute little pocket because of that alteration that I did. I really enjoyed making that. That is a fabulous pattern. I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and hopefully you will make it too. If you do make it, please post it in my Facebook group because I love to see what other people make. And I'd love to see what colors you picked for this too. Now that you've watched me make it, you might do some cool crazy stuff and put some embroidery and other things. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye!